Good morning, BBQ Bootcampers, and welcome to your first day of the Louisiana 4-H Virtual BBQ Bootcamp. I'm your counselor for today, Sean Myers, and I'm so excited to get things started. We want to keep in 4-H fashion, so we're going to do the same things we would as if we were at Camp Grant Walker right now, ready to kick off our day. We're going to go ahead and start with our 4-H pledge, followed by our camp song for today, Hey Burrito. Stand up and follow me in the pledge. I pledge my head to clear thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living for my club, my community, my country, and my world. What's your favorite camp song? Tell us down in the comments. My favorite camp song is Hey Burrito. Sing along with me and have fun. Hey burrito. Hey, hey, hey burrito. Yeah, burrito, yeah. Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Guacamole, cinnamon twist. Hey burrito. Hey, hey, hey burrito. Yeah, burrito, yeah. Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Guacamole, cinnamon twist. Hey burrito. Hey, hey, hey burrito. Yeah, burrito, yeah. Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Guacamole, cinnamon twist. Hey burrito. Hey, hey, hey burrito. Yeah, burrito, yeah. Taco Bell, Taco Bell. Guacamole, cinnamon twist. That was amazing. We're so excited to start our day, and we're so ready to start it too. I hope to see you all for the rest of our camp and on our family game night on Thursday. Ms. Crystal Aarons, our state animal science specialist, and Ms. Claire Zach, our state healthy living specialist, will now lead us in today's events as you become pork barbecue masters. Bye.
Hi. Hey. Welcome to Barbecue Bootcamp. We're so excited you're here. Yes, we've been looking forward to this day. So I'm Crystal Aarons. I am the State 4-H Animal Science Specialist.
And I am Claire Zach. I'm the 4-H Healthy Living Specialist. And behind the screen today, we have Miss Christina Zito-Abair, and she is our 4-H Career Readiness Specialist.
Hi, everybody.
We wouldn't be able to do it without our control center managers, so we're definitely going to have a lot of fun. So just like Sean kicked it off, we have a few things to go over. One, let's see some burritos in that comment section.
Burrito.
And along with those burritos, let's see your name and where you're from. We have people all over joining us today, so throw those in the comments and let us say hi to you.
And we also, let's talk about what our favorite water bottles are. I brought my favorite.
We're matching.
We like the color blue, clearly. And don't forget to share our live event. You got to bring all your friends so that you can all be barbecue champions together.
Yes. So for the next hour, we're going to stay hydrated. We're going to have a lot of fun. If you have a snack, you're even better off.
Absolutely.
And remember, share, 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 because we want everyone to join us at Barbecue Bootcamp today.
Absolutely.
So to kick off Barbecue Bootcamp, we're going to have a little run through of what the day is going to look like. Okay. So barbecue. We're going to go over some animal science, some basic animal science.
Okay.
And then we're going to move on to some meat science. Okay. And then, of course, we're going to end the day with the best part.
Recipes
and barbecue demos.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Speaking of recipes, now we're going to talk more about it later, but we have to do a little prep right now so that we can eat later. Right now. Right in this moment. So we previously talked about it. We have some pressure cooker ribs that we're making.
InstaRib.
Oh, some InstaRib.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. So, in our InstaRibs, I have my ribs right here, and we have dry rubbed them. Now, we're going to talk about that later. But we have our dry rubbed ribs, and we're going to put them into our pressure cooker. It's an electric pressure cooker, so it's not the scary ones that your grandma used. But here, we have a trivet, and a trivet basically is just a piece of metal that you have put in the bottom of your pot. Now, I didn't have a trivet, so guess what? You can use cookie cutters.
But why do I need a trivet? Why do I want this metal thing in the bottom of my pot?
You don't want trivets to burn. They'll burn if they're just sitting on the bottom of your pot without anything in between.
Okay.
So you put your trivet down and you put some water in, or you can use some vegetables, kind of keep a hole. You can put some potatoes down there. And then we're going to take our ribs, we've cut them into 4 pieces, and we're going to build a little pyramid with them. So we're going to build those up into our pot, and then I'm going to go and set this up, set it for 20 minutes, and then let it natural release, which basically just means that I don't touch it for 10 minutes after the 20 minutes it's been cooking. And then at the end of our show, I'll bring these out and they'll be fully cooked.
So we're gonna have ribs.
We're gonna have ribs
by the end of barbecue boot camp.
By the end of our boot camp.
I'm in. I'm sticking around. I don't know about y'all, but I'm here.
So important thing, I just touched raw meat, so I'm gonna go wash my hands. And so I'm gonna wash my hands. I'm gonna turn the show over to Miss Crystal.
Okay. So like we said, we're gonna be doing animal science, meat science, and of course all the good parts. Does that work? So, barbecue basics. What is barbecue exactly? If we define it, barbecue is slow cooked, smoked meat. Simple as that. Now that differs from other ways of cooking, but barbecue in its traditional form is slow cooked, smoked meat. And it varies depending on where you live. Specifically regionally. Carolina barbecue is very different from Memphis barbecue. Down here in Louisiana, we definitely like our spicy foods. So our barbecue looks different than other places in the nation. And so barbecue is slow cooked, smoked meat, and it can vary into what that looks like.
Oh, very cool. Very cool.
So, but where does barbecue come from? It comes from meat, right? Meat comes from? Okay. Meat comes from animals, but we're gonna ask y'all, what part of the animal do you think you're eating when you eat meat?
Well, we eat ribs.
We do eat ribs. We eat. Well, y'all tell us in the comments where we eat.
We don't eat the fat.
Not all of it.
Yeah.
Definitely don't eat all of the fat. So we're not eating bone, we're not eating fat. We're eating muscle. Muscle. How many of y'all out there got that right? Did we get some muscle answers? Just throw us. Oh yeah. Give us a little strong emoji. Let us know that you've learned that when you're eating meat, you're eating the muscle of an animal. Yeah. There's going to be some technical. We got to make sure our control center manager knows where we're going at all times.
Oh yeah.
So, if we're going to be eating meat, we got to know how to raise it. Yep. Because we're raising animals, and that's how we get to our end product. And raising animals is a whole science. Mm-hmm. Animal science is a whole area of the industry where you can have careers and spend your whole life studying animals and how to get the most out of them. But there's a lot of different areas of it. Okay. So genetics and nutrition are something that we're going to talk a lot about today, right? Because those two things play a big factor in our end product of meat. Okay. Physiology is Physiology is a part of animal science. Okay. Other things that are very, very important to what we're talking about today is animal health. Oh yeah. Etiology, meat science, and then there's a couple other areas of like dairy science and biotechnology.
Okay. Physiology and etiology. Those are some big words. I'm going to need you to break it down.
Okay. So if we think about the word ology, the ending word, ology, means the study of. Anything that ends in the word ology means study of. Okay. So we're studying something specific. Okay. In the case of etiology, we're studying animal behavior and welfare. Okay. Animal behavior and welfare. Got it. Yes. And so welfare. Okay. So welfare is very dependent. It's animal husbandry. So it's how we take care of an animal. Oh, and we have to take care of our animals as best possible, because if we don't provide them a happy, healthy place to live, they're not going to grow and produce good, tasty, efficient meat. Okay. So the better we take care of an animal, the better it's going to taste. Absolutely. Okay. And so we can dedicate a whole area of animal science. People dedicate their lives to understanding how we can do that.
Okay, and that's etiology.
Etiology.
Very cool. Like in biology, we're studying science.
Exactly.
Very cool. Huh.
Okay. Moving on. Let's just talk about some basics.
Yeah.
Animals have been around for a very, very long time. We've used them for a lot of reasons. Nowadays, we typically use animals for the most part for consumption, so we eat them
For our food.
or we have pets, and those are companions. We don't raise companion animals for the same reason, right? But historically, we've always used animals for food. We've also used them for work.
Okay.
So if you think historically about oxen,
Pulling the big farm equipment.
yes,
Very cool.
our technology has allowed us to get away from that practice now, so we don't do that as much. But that was historically why animals were part of our lives.
Okay.
And then we said companion animals, so for activities we like to play with them. There's also horse racing and dog racing, zoos, different things like that. There's a lot of reason animals would be people would take care of them.
Yeah.
Certain animals also produce clothing.
Like we could wear some animal fur?
Absolutely. So if you think about the winter time, it doesn't get quite cold enough down here in Louisiana.
Some 2 days a year.
Maybe. But if you're way up north,
You might have some wool socks.
definitely.
You might have a wool blanket, even in Louisiana.
That's true.
That would be something that we use to stay warm.
Absolutely. So sheep produce wool, and if you've ever heard of cashmere, that really expensive sweater or scarf or gloves, that actually comes from a goat.
Or even like a leather handbag.
A leather
leather
belt. Absolutely. So we definitely use what we call byproducts of the animal because we also eat sheep, goat, and cattle. So those are actually additional products we call byproducts. So we can consume the animal and then we can utilize every bit of it for another purpose.
Very cool.
And then the other thing seems like a crazy contribution, a little stinky, is waste. Animal waste is vital to a lot of things. So let's break it down to even the most basic of formats.
Okay.
Do you got a garden?
I do. Do you have a garden? Raise your hand in the comments.
Show us some emojis what you're growing. I've got tomatoes and zucchini at the house.
I have an eggplant. I have some bell peppers.
Yes. So let's see those emojis.
Delicious. We love vegetables.
So let me ask you, how do you fertilize?
We fertilize. We got some manure.
Best way.
And manure, again, stinky, but it's the best fertilizer.
Absolutely the best fertilizer.
Where does our manure come from?
Animals, yet again.
There you go.
Okay. So animals give us a lot of things. Today, focusing on the barbecue.
Okay.
But to get there, we're going to talk about the history a little bit. Okay. So we're going to move forward, next slide, and we're going to talk about pork.
Pork.
It's pork day,
We love pork.
but before we have pork, we have pigs.
Okay.
So pigs have been around for a very, very long time.
Okay.
There have been studies and research and findings that pigs have been found where humans live close by, even in caves and huts, as far as 9,000 plus years ago.
Woo, that's a long time.
Yes. And once we start really looking into that, even cultures around like 3,000 to 4,000 BC, cultures over in the eastern side of the U.S., not the U.S., sorry, in the eastern side of the world, like China, what used to be known as Persia, some of those more Asian countries, it's very, very vital to their culture. Even today,
They eat a lot of pork.
they eat a lot of pork. Pork is actually the most widely consumed meat. Wow. Of all meat consumed, 38% of it is pork only. Wow. The rest of it is spread across other species.
That's a lot.
So pork is the most predominantly consumed meat.
Wow. That's really cool.
Absolutely.
That's a lot of pigs.
A lot of pigs. So we know it was over in the eastern part of the world.
But we have it in the U.S. now.
We have it in the U.S., but we didn't get it until about 1539,
Okay.
when DeSoto brought them over, and we started with 13.
No.
13 pigs. That's all we started with. Yep.
Wow. That's a little bit big.
And as time grew, they started moving from Florida to other areas where they're more suited to grow and different things like that.
Okay.
Cooler climates, more access to what they like to eat, different things along those lines. And our first big center that was harvesting pork was known as Porkopolis.
Porkopolis.
And it was in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Okay, so more north from Louisiana.
A lot more north.
Okay.
A lot more north. And so, in spirit of Porkopolis, let's see those pig emojis. Give us some pig emojis.
Those big emojis.
And so Cincinnati was our first one, but then it kind of migrated.
Okay.
And even today, Chicago is well known and historically well known as kind of a meat area, and specifically pork. And historically, it was known as the pork butcher of the world.
Oh, wow.
So Chicago is still very, very important to our meat history. But initially, it was Porkopolis.
Porkopolis. Okay, so we had 13 pigs to start with, but how many do we have now?
So moving to the next moment, there's about 75.5 million pigs. That's just in the U.S.
No way.
Yep, just in the U.S. So that was reported numbers of recent inventory of pigs in the U.S.
Okay.
And it makes up about 7% of the world's pigs.
Wow. So 13 pigs, and all the many years later, we have 75.5 million.
75.5 million.
That's a lot.
That's a lot. And like I said, it's 7% of the world's pigs, but it actually makes up 9% of the world's pork.
Wow. Well, where would we keep all those pigs?
They're all over the place. But remember how we said behavior, we study what they like and how we can grow them the best possible?
What do they like?
Well, most of our pigs are found in what we call the U.S. Corn Belt.
The Corn Belt. So pigs are kind of corny.
Miss Claire. Miss Claire's pulling her nose. Feel free to give Miss Claire some corn cobs for that one. So so we actually find 74% of all the pigs in the U.S. are found in the Corn Belt.
Okay.
Does anybody out there know where the Corn Belt is exactly? So it's up north. Okay. It's definitely up north. Okay. And Iowa is actually the #1 producing hog state in the nation.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yep. So it's in the Midwest part of the U.S. That's what's known as the Corn Belt.
So Iowa is real corny.
Yes. Iowa is real corny and full of pigs.
Interesting. So if we have Iowa being corny, we have pigs there. Pigs eat corn.
That's a good thought.
Okay, let's keep talking about it.
Okay. So let's move on to a little bit of nutrition.
Okay.
We know the history about pigs. We know how they got to the U.S. We know where to find them in the U.S.
Okay.
But why do we find them then? Find them in the Corn Belt. So this is where nutrition starts to become a very big part of animal science. Nutrition can determine how fast an animal grows, how well it grows, how healthy it is, how strong its immune system is. It's very, very vital to growing an animal.
It's important. It's important for us.
It's so important that it actually makes up 60 to 70% of the cost of growing an animal.
Wow.
Yep. So if it costs 60 to 70% of the production to put towards nutrition, and pigs like eating corn because of the type of animal they are, we started growing pigs where we also grow corn.
Oh, because if we don't have to pay to ship corn to our pigs, then it cuts down on the cost.
Absolutely.
Oh, very cool.
Absolutely. So, why do they like to eat corn? So, pigs are pretty interesting. There are 2 types of digestive systems known in animal science. Do any of y'all know what the 2 are? If you know what the 2 types of digestive systems are, put it into our comments. If not, we're going to talk about one of them today, but you'll have to come back on Wednesday to learn about the other one.
Yes.
So the first one, the one that pigs fall in, is what's called a monogastric.
Monogastric.
Yep.
What is that?
Again, just like we did with etiology, let's break down the word. Okay. So gastric, typically makes you think about your guts.
Your gut. Okay, like your stomach.
Yes, specifically your stomach. So mono means one. So one stomach. So an animal being a one stomach animal, like us, exactly like us.
Oh.
Pigs are very similar in their body type to us.
Cool.
And so, since they have one stomach, just like us, we have to feed them all the protein and all the carbohydrates and all the energy that they need.
Okay.
Because they can't create it in any way. They have to consume it, and then it can become muscle or energy or whatever it is.
Okay.
So, most of what we feed pigs, we find most of our protein from soybeans.
Okay. Soybeans.
Also grown up north.
Close to where they are.
And then we find the energy for them to survive and move and do all those things from a carbohydrate, corn. So just like humans find protein in soybean and carbs in corn, so do our pigs.
Very cool.
Yes. Now, remember how I said how much of the production costs go into nutrition?
60 60 to 70%.
60 to 70%.
A lot.
Awesome. So, how much feed do we actually have to give an animal to make it gain a pound?
I would imagine it's like 10 pounds.
Some animals it is. It varies depending on the species. Pigs are a smaller animal, right?
Okay.
So they're going to be a little bit more efficient.
Yeah.
They're one stomach system, different things along those lines.
Okay.
It's what we call a feed conversion.
Okay.
So we have to feed this much to get 1 pound. And our feed conversion for pigs is 3 to 1. We have to feed 3 pounds of feed to gain 1.
Cool. So 3 pounds of corn and soybeans to get 1 pound of weight.
Yes. And because nutrition is such a big part of it, we have nutritionists out there. It's a whole area of careers that if this kind of thing interests you, you can actually become a nutritionist and you'll focus on what do we need to mix into those corn and soybeans that maybe is more local, that's a cheaper source. What kind of minerals and anything along those lines that the pig may need, because essential and non-essential amino acids, different things along those lines, super scientific, but it's a whole area of science.
But it's just like we eat healthy food, we eat food like fruits and vegetables to give us certain vitamins. It's the same thing.
Yep, and you take certain vitamins every morning.
Yeah.
And so we have to make sure it goes into their feed as well.
Very cool.
Absolutely. Let's check in with our control center manager. Do we got any major questions? Doing good. Okay. Y'all keep telling us where you're from, having fun in those comments.
Quick question, or this has come up a couple of times, hot dogs. Is there chicken, beef, and pork in some hot dogs
So,
based on the
Good
packaging?
question.
that is a fantastic question. So the question was about hot dogs, and if there's chicken, beef, and pork in hot dogs. It all depends on the hot dog you buy.
Yep.
So some hot dogs, if you look at the package, it will say all beef, and that's an all beef hot dog. There's no pork in that. Some will say that it has a mixture of pork and chicken. Typically, you won't see, obviously we have turkey dogs these days. You don't really see all chicken dogs a ton. You'll see a chicken sausage here and there, but you don't see a hot dog. And there are some all pork dogs as well, but again, that it's typically more of a sausage than it is a hot dog.
Okay.
So you typically see all beef, where you see a mixture. And yes, it absolutely does have all 3. And when you're talking about a hot dog requires good protein to make that happen. So it's ground up whole muscles.
Okay.
Nothing to be worried about. And so it's just the concept of grinding maybe smaller cuts of meat that didn't make it into a steak.
Okay.
And we're using it we put seasoning into it and we make hot dog.
Because all of my steaks and things like that are typically the same shape.
Absolutely.
So they've probably been cut that way, right?
Absolutely. It's also a way to use up some fat as well. As long as it's good, clean fat, we can, if we don't like to eat raw fat,
Right.
but hot dogs do have to have fat to bind to proteins and different things like that to make the shape and the emulsion that fits.
So from a healthy living standpoint, hot dogs are a little high in fat. They're a little high in sodium, which is salt, and those things we can have sometimes.
Yeah.
Like on the 4th of July.
Absolutely.
But
Not
we
a
don't
hot
want
dog
to have
girl.
them all the time, every day. So you can eat hot dogs. And like Ms. Crystal just said, they're a good quality of protein. So don't be afraid of hot dogs. I eat hot dogs.
Absolutely. They're one of my favorite things.
Absolutely.
I like them real dark and real burnt. How do you like your hot dogs? Are you a burned hot dog kind of person like I am?
I'm not a burnt hot dog kind of person.
Y'all go. Just toast it. Miss Claire's wrong. Y'all go.
Okay. Well, I gotta get back to pigs because
Okay.
I have a couple questions. Okay.
Okay. Miss Christina, just let us know if any more questions come up. Just
Are we
interrupt.
flipping the slide from feed conversion?
Yes, we are.
Yes.
Because I have some pig fact questions. So I hear some different names, right? Like you hear all these different things that pigs are called.
Okay.
Like, okay, if I was a scientist and I wanted to call them their scientific name,
The fancy name?
the fancy name, what would I call them?
Porcine.
Porcine?
Porcine.
Porcine.
It's a scientific word that you can actually say.
Porcine. That's a good one. That's not too bad.
Super easy.
Okay, so what about like the common names, like what everybody else calls them?
So everybody calls them a lot of different things. We've been calling them pigs.
Yeah.
Ever heard the term hog?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Hog.
Yeah,
I think
a
of
hog.
Tough hog.
Well, and so a lot of times that's how it's associated. When people call it a hog, sometimes it means that it's a little over a certain weight.
Okay.
It means
okay.
a bigger pig. That doesn't, not everybody uses it in that context, but that's sometimes what it means.
Okay. Any other common names?
The other one is, it's more of a Latin rooted name, and it's swine.
Oh, swine. I like that.
Yeah, swine. It's very, very popular. And it's, like I said, it's a Latin rooted name, but they all mean the same thing. We're all referring to a live pig.
Interesting. Okay, so what about the little baby?
Okay, Claire, What do you call the baby?
Piglet.
Piglet. Everybody loves poop and piglet, right? Well, I hate to burst your bubble. Technically, on a technical level, we don't really call them piglets. We just call them pigs.
Oh, okay.
The young of pigs are pigs.
Oh. Okay, but like if I still want to call them piglet, can I call them piglet?
Nobody's gonna yell at you.
Perfect.
It's fine. Call them piglet. But yes, but just know that it technically is a pig.
Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Okay, so how do we get those baby pigs? We do have to go through a little bit of this just because breeding farrowing and things like that are a major part of pork production, and it makes up a whole phase of production.
Okay.
And so we actually have a technical term for the term giving birth.
Okay.
Every species has a different name.
Farrowing means giving birth.
Yes.
Just in pigs.
Just in pigs.
Interesting.
Yes, it will change. That term will change when we talk about cattle on Wednesday.
Cool.
Absolutely. So the process of giving birth is farrowing.
Okay.
But we have to grow that baby inside, right, first?
Yeah.
So the process of growing a baby is what's known as gestation.
Gestation means growing a baby.
Yes, it's from the time that the animal was bred
Mm-hmm.
to the time that they have the baby.
Okay. How long does that take?
So, again, varies in every animal.
Oh, okay.
For humans, it's about 10 months,
Yeah.
9, 10 months. In pigs, it is 114 days.
114 days.
I know, that sounds like a lot. Some of you pig people out there, I know y'all are pig people. There's a trick that we're about to teach Miss Claire. Can some of y'all get to it before me? So, before you start counting your fingers, you run out of toes.
I would run out.
114 days has a really clever little memory tool.
Okay, so
3 months,
3 months,
3 weeks,
3 weeks,
and 3 days.
3 days.
Exactly.
That's so cool.
Yep. 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days. That's how we remember how long it takes.
3 weeks, 3 days.
So it doesn't take long at all.
Very cool. Yeah, that's not long.
Well, and that's another reason why we're going to talk a lot about pork today, because that gestation period, that short gestation period, allows us to change what the end product looks like, because it doesn't take us long to change our breeding.
Oh, very cool.
We'll get real in depth with that in a little bit.
Okay.
So just to round out everything, we know what to call them. We know what to call their babies. We know how long it takes to get the babies.
Okay.
There's a couple other just basic terms I want y'all to know,
Okay.
and that's boar and barrow.
Boar and barrow.
So it means we're talking about male pigs.
Male pigs. Okay.
Boars means they're intact, so it means they can breed.
Okay. They can have babies.
They can make babies. Yes, they can make babies. Barrows cannot.
No babies.
We also tend to use barrows in meat production because they grow a little faster.
Okay.
Yep, we're not using all the energy we give them to make testosterone or anything else, so it can go to making meat.
Okay.
So it's very good.
So boar means that they can breed, and barrow means that they cannot.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, what about the female?
Yep, they have 2 names too.
Oh,
So we have a gilt
guilt,
and a sow.
sow. Okay, guilt, like I'm guilty, I feel bad about something.
Not quite.
Okay.
No you.
No, you.
So a gilt is a female pig that's never had babies before.
Never had babies. Okay.
And then a sow is a female that has had babies before.
Has had babies. Okay, so guilt means a female who's had babies, and sow means a female who has. Wait, switch it.
There
Guilt
you go.
means a female who has not had babies.
There we go.
And sow means a female who has had babies.
Pro.
I got it.
So why do I mention differences between males and females? It does matter in the end product. Males, just like in humans, tend to have more muscle naturally.
Okay, they get bigger.
Yep, they tend to be bigger, more muscle than fat.
Okay.
Females, while they can get just as big and they can still have a ton of muscle, they still also tend to have more fat.
Okay.
Doesn't mean they have more fat than muscle. They just tend to have more fat than males. And when we get to talking about meat, we'll learn more about what fat means.
Okay, interesting. So now we are pig geniuses.
Yes, pig geniuses.
Pig geniuses.
We have a few more things to learn. So we learned our pork facts, our pig facts, not pork facts. Let's move on to like our phases of the swine operation. So in our next slide, we're talking about, you remember how I said farrowing was its own place in the industry? It goes along with a few other things. So breeding, farrowing, let's switch that up. Breeding, gestation, and farrowing all kind of go hand in hand. Now, can y'all remember what was gestation? How long was the gestation period in pigs?
I got it.
Oh, now we're gonna let them answer, Miss Claire. We're gonna let them answer.
Fine.
So somebody type in that chat. Let us know how many days does it take for the gestation of a pig. So breeding is the process of what it sounds like. We're breeding pigs so that they can have babies.
Okay.
Gestation is growing the babies, providing that mom what she needs to grow a healthy litter. Of piglets. Of pigs. And then the farrowing part is providing that animal that soon to be sow, if she's a gilt.
Yes.
Providing her a space and the nutrition and the heat, everything she needs to be a good mom. Taking care of her. And so on average, the regular pig litter is about 10 to 12 pigs.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of piglets.
It can be a lot of piglets.
Or pigs.
There you go. And so they're also about 2 pounds ever.
Oh, wow.
And so that all 3 of those things typically happen on the same farm.
Pretty small. Oh, okay.
And it can continue from there,
Okay.
or those pigs can be moved to another farm so that that farm can focus on giving them what they need to grow even better.
A whole farm of piglets.
It's a whole farm of pigs.
Of baby pigs.
There you go. And so from the farrowing operation or the farrowing area phase, they're going to be moved to a nursery. So pigs naturally wean about 21 days of age.
Oh.
Weaning means they can eat on their own and they're easily consuming feed. They don't need their mother anymore. They'll naturally do that at about 21 days of age. And I was getting a message from our control center manager. So they weigh about 21 days of age, and they're about 13 to 15 pounds at that time.
Okay.
So they're going to be moved to the nursery. Yep, they're getting bigger.
Okay.
They're going to be moved to the nursery, and pigs like baby pigs like it to be warm.
Oh,
Just like babies. Growing pigs also. So the nursery tends to be a hotter temperature,
Oh, okay.
and they're provided a very specific nursery diet to make sure it's the right amount of protein to the right amount of energy they need at that age.
Oh, okay.
Yes, it's completely formulated for that time period.
Okay.
We're going to grow them to about 50 to 60 pounds in the nursery.
Pretty big.
It's getting a little big.
And growing a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at the picture on the screen, you'll start to see what this looks like and how big they are getting. So once we get to that 60-pound mark, we're going to take them out of the nursery, move them to what we call a growing and finishing stage.
Oh, okay.
Again, this can be another phase of the operation. It may be another farm. It may be the same farm, depending on the setup.
How long until they get to that growing and finishing operation?
So it's more on weight. So once they're up to that right weight, but they're going to be there about 115 to 120 days.
Ooh, that's similar to how long that they gestate, right?
It is very similar.
Oh,
So about 3 months.
Okay.
And when we're in this growing, finishing phase of life, we are going to start feeding them a lot more.
Okay.
They're going to be intaking about 6 to 10 pounds of feed a day. Why is that?
Of corn and soybean.
And what was our feed conversion?
3 to
1. 3 to 1. So if we're feeding them 6 pounds, we're hoping to get about 2 pounds a day per day.
Oh, okay.
So that's why we worry about those kind of things. And essentially in the U.S., we're looking for pigs that get to 280 pounds before we harvest them.
Woo, that's a lot.
It's a lot. It is a very big peak. Okay, and do you remember how we said pigs originally kind of started over in the eastern part of the world? Over in the eastern part of the world, they actually grow their pigs a little smaller. They start to harvest around 180. But we like our bigger pigs at 280.
Wow.
Yep. And even better than that, it only takes about 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that's crazy. Okay.
Super crazy.
So we can go 6 months from when they're born to when they're ready to harvest.
Yes. And so one of the reasons that's so great for us is that consumers tell us what kind of pig they want.
Oh. Okay.
And when I say what kind of pig they want, we're talking about like how fat or how lean. And just like nutrition played a big part into what the meat tasted like at the end, we're going to move to our next slide, which starts talking about pig breeds.
Ooh, there are different breeds of pigs?
There are different breeds of pigs.
Wow, cool.
2 main ways to it. We have a question?
Yes, we do have a question. This is the question. Do baby piglets eat slop or just adult pigs? Does it
Okay.
depend on the farm? Can
That's
you
a-
give some
Yeah.
details?
Okay, so that's a great question. So slop. Let's define what slop is.
Yeah.
Slop can be a lot of things depending on who you are.
Really gross.
You know, I think when we think about movies and we think about the stories of pigs,
Yeah.
and we wonder about slop, we're thinking about like remnants of food, different things along those lines,
The
leftovers.
trash.
Yeah, the trash, the leftovers. And we actually don't feed our pigs slop in that format. Now, pigs love watermelon.
Yeah.
They love corn cobs. They love treats just like we do.
Okay.
But we said that we have to give our animals both protein and carbohydrates to grow muscle, correct?
Uh-huh.
And so if we fed them just slop in that traditional format, they wouldn't actually grow and produce the meat that we're looking for. It would, and if they did, which they would, it would take a lot longer to get there. Remember, 3 to 1. So 3 pounds of slop is going to be a lot harder to find of quality.
Yeah.
Because so it's only 3 pounds of food per 1 pound of game when it's high quality food. Slop's not going to qualify as that. Now, if you're a show pig kid out there, I know y'all are just waiting. There are times where we feed a meal.
Okay.
So a very, very fine ground feed.
Okay.
And we may mix it with water and it looks like slop. But it's still soybean, corn,
Good quality.
it's high quality feed.
Okay.
So can pigs and can baby pigs and grown pigs both eat slop? Yes, but it's not going to be the type of feed you need.
Okay. So can baby pigs chew on like crunchy?
Actually, they can. So in operations, we fixed this. But baby pigs are born with what we call needle teeth.
No way.
Yep. They're
That
so
sounds
sharp.
painful.
They are so sharp. And because of that, because they're so sharp, we do nip those off when they're babies, when they're first born. It does not hurt them.
Okay.
It's a bone.
Okay.
It does not hurt them. It's, uncomfortable. Like you go to the dentist, it's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But does it hurt?
It doesn't hurt.
We take care of all of that and it's okay. And we do that to protect mom and to protect each other because they'll like to eat each other, bite each other's tails and play. And those needle teeth can be very, very tough. But naturally, technically, yes. And so then, is it going to be a little harder without those needle teeth to be able to eat through a piece of watermelon or something like that? Absolutely. But if they try hard enough, which they will, they can definitely do it.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to hear more about the breed of pig.
Oh, you got really excited about that.
I did, because I know the pictures are so cute.
Yes. Okay. So breeds determine a few things. So it tells us how fast they gain. Different breeds grow faster, just like you grew faster than I did. You and I are 2 different heights and 2 different body types. Pigs are the same way. Different breeds, different types of pigs look different. They also have different litter sizes. Some will have smaller litters, some will have larger litters.
Okay.
And they also have different meat types. Some will be leaner, some will be fatter, some will be more known for producing meat, and some won't.
Okay.
And there's 2 main ways we try to tell our pigs apart.
Okay.
They're really easy. Body shape, color, and ears.
Color and ears.
Yes, body shape will help us too because different, like I said, different pigs look different ways. But the most popular way, yes, are ears and color.
Very cool. Ears and color.
As we're going, guys, I know some of y'all out there have a favorite breed. Some of you won't know any of them, and we're about to learn, but some of y'all have a favorite breed.
Okay.
So,
I want to know their favorite breed. I want to know your favorite breeds.
Yeah, tell us your favorite breeds. So, if we move to the next slide, you're going to see the 8 most popular breeds in the U.S.
Okay.
And so, when we're talking about breeds, there's 2 main categories.
Okay.
Maternal, and terminal.
Maternal and terminal. What does that mean?
Okay, so maternal means they're going to be good moms.
Oh, okay. Good moms. Maternal means good mom.
Yes.
Same thing with humans. We say that sometimes with humans.
Yes, they're very maternal.
Okay.
Means that they're probably going to have higher litter sizes, produce more milk. They're very maternal.
Their babies might be happier. Their pigs might be happier. I got it right.
You got it right. Finally. But yeah, so they're more maternal.
Okay.
The other ones are known more for meat. Terminal means that their life will come to an end. Terminal. They have a purpose.
Okay.
So we're going to consume them.
Okay. So terminal, we will consume them for their meat.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, we can consume all of them.
Okay.
But some of them lean one way or another. And so now that we know the categories, let's talk about those 2 main ways to tell pigs apart.
Okay.
So, ears.
Their ears.
Ears. Let's look at the picture.
Okay.
Everybody look at your pictures. What is something that you notice about the differences in the ears on the pigs? Look real close. So we've already talked about that some of them are terminal breeds, some are terminal, but we haven't really told you which one of those breeds are. You'll see them on the screen, of course, but tell me specifically, what do you see about the ears?
Miss Christina, do you see anything?
They hold their ears differently.
Oh.
Some are flopped over and some stand up straight.
Some of them are pointy and
Yes.
some of them are floppy.
Interesting.
Yes.
Okay, so maybe if we're trying to remember the breeds,
Okay.
we can learn something from that. So if you look real close at the names, every pig that has ears that stand up, that's what we call erect. They have erect ears, means they stand up.
They stand up, they're erect.
And their name will end in shire.
Shire. Okay, so erect ears, shire.
Everything else has floppy ears. And the reason why that's important is because when we start looking at their color, you notice there's a lot of black pigs on here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of white pigs on here.
Yeah.
Their ears are going to help us tell us which ones are which. And so if you look at the picture,
Okay.
and we start separating out to our maternal and terminal breeds, all of our maternal breeds are the white pigs on the picture.
Oh.
The white pigs.
The white pigs are the maternal breeds. That means they're the good moms.
Right, they have the more maternal instinct.
Oh, interesting. And okay, are they white or are they pink?
Okay, so they're kind of in between.
Okay.
They're not pig pink per se, but they're not white either. They're just somewhere in between. Some have more pink tinge than others.
Okay, but they're a light color, so we call them white.
Yes, absolutely. So
Okay.
all the white pigs in the picture are known as our maternal breeds.
Okay.
And then everything else is known as terminal breeds.
Okay, so that's the good meat.
That's the good meat pigs. And so if you look at some of the differences, you'll notice that the only white pig in the picture that has erect ears is a Yorkshire. So that's easy to tell apart.
Because it's the erect ears equals shire.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Perfect. And then from there, you start looking at colors. So our Berkshire, it is a black pig with white spots that have erect ears. But our Poland China is a black pig, same white spots, but their ears are floppy.
So they don't have fire.
Exactly.
There you go.
That's how you do it. And so you can work your way around all of them from there.
Okay.
So now that everyone has seen all the main breeds of pigs that we really deal with, give us a shout out. Tell us which one was your favorite.
Tell us your favorite.
I do personally have a favorite. Growing up, I was always leaned towards the Hampshires. They were always my favorite. The older I get, I start to really start looking more towards like the spots and the dew-rocks. I really like them. But I was always been partial to a Hampshire.
That's so sweet. You know, how would you say landrace?
Landrace.
The landrace one, I like the floppy ears. I like the lighter skin, but that's just me personally by what they look like. I don't know anything about pigs.
So there's actually a fun fact about the landrace too. So remember in the maternal breeds, the Yorkshire had the erect ears, but the other two had floppy ears. So it's really hard to tell those apart. But if you like really floppy ears, landraces are known to have ears that may flop all the way to the nose.
Oh no.
Yeah, they're super floppy.
Couldn't see ya.
Absolutely.
Oh.
So they have super floppy ears, and the Cheshire White has just moderately floppy.
Okay, that's good to know. Well, yeah, I like the landrace. That's fine.
Okay, so
Can't judge me.
we got a question.
Miss Crystal, are all the Hampshires striped like this?
Okay, so this is a very perfect picture of a Hampshire. Very, very perfect picture. And so, yes, technically, to be a full-blood registered Hampshire, it does have to have the complete white belt around the front two legs. There are standards by registering organizations that kind of set those standards, but in practice in an industry, we kind of call anything with that white stripe around the front a Hampshire. Sometimes it's wider, sometimes it's narrower, and that can vary. As you start breeding animals with or breeding pigs with different types of pigs, you may start losing that stripe, or it may get smaller. It may disappear on one side. But yes, traditionally a Hampshire has to have the full white ring, but it can be different widths.
Okay, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about you said breeding them together?
That's the fun part. Remember how we talked about genetics as a career path in animal science?
Yes.
Okay, so genetics is one of these things. It's where we said we have maternal and terminal types, right? But our end goal with pig is typically to consume it.
Yeah.
So why would we ever deal with maternal?
Well, I mean, we do need to have happy pigs.
We have to produce babies. We have to have good producing babies to have good producing meat.
Okay.
And so sometimes, not always, but sometimes we may want to pick the best of both worlds, the characteristics of best of both worlds.
Okay.
And so we may want a maternal pig that can produce a pig that is also made for meat. And so maybe we pick one of our maternals as our gilt or our sow that we're going to breed.
Okay.
And then we pick our boar as one of the meat types.
Okay.
So we're getting the best of both worlds.
Perfect. So we have good moms and good meat.
Good moms and good
All in one.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
So there's actually a couple of very popular crossbreeds.
Okay.
And it'll actually look similar to what we mentioned in our favorite pigs. So on the next slide, we have what we call a crossbred. And it's an example of what happens with genetics. And so we took the Hampshire, which is my favorite.
Okay.
And we took the Yorkshire on this one because it's probably the most popular in the U.S.
I like that one too.
But it's still white, just like your landrace.
Oh.
So the coloration of what happens when you breed those two animals would be the same.
Okay.
You'd still end up with a blue butt type animal. It may not look like this exactly, maybe more spotted or something, but typically this is a pretty common happening.
Okay, very cool. So the name probably comes from that
That's
your
right.
butt looks blue.
Exactly.
You can giggle at that if you want to.
And so we do this to make the most of our end product.
Okay.
We breed, we have a whole area of animal science dedicated to genetics to make sure that we can produce what's best for the consumer and for the producer. Something that's efficient, something that eats well, something that produces well.
Okay, very cool.
Okay. All right. Your animal science session is done.
We did it.
We did it.
We are now officially pig geniuses.
Pig geniuses.
Show us in your comments. Give us a pig emoji, give us a brain emoji or a light bulb emoji, and tell us how much of a pig genius you are right now.
And if any of these areas interested you, tell us along with your light bulb and your brain what area you would want to work in. If you had to work in animal science, which one of these areas, nutrition, genetics, what we're about to talk about with meat science, what would you want to do as a career? Okay, because that's what I do. Yeah, I'm the animal science specialist here. Yeah, and so I've worked in nutrition, I've worked in genetics, I've worked in animal welfare, and now I get to teach about it.
Very cool.
Yeah,
There's so much to do.
so much to do. But you know what my biggest passion is?
Can I do it again?
I mean, you work in the office with me along with Miss Christina, so I think y'all are gonna know.
Because we share this passion.
Are we about to cook?
We're talking about eating.
We're talking
Yay!
about eating. Everybody in the office knows I'm a big meat science nerd. I love meat science. Shout out to Dr. Apple and Dr. Yancey from the university that kind of got me into meat science.
Oh.
Yeah, meat science is really fun because it's what we eat.
Yeah.
We learn where that came
And
from.
we love to eat.
Love to eat. Speaking of eating,
Yeah.
we're talking about pigs, right?
Uh-huh.
So the process
Uh-huh.
of pigs to pork is a harvesting process.
Okay.
So when a pig goes to a pork, muscle turns into meat.
Okay.
And what is everyone's favorite pork meat product?
Tell us.
Everyone tell us.
Tell us what your favorite pork.
We know what you're dying to say. We know what you're dying to say.
It could be something that we don't know.
So we're gonna hold off just a little bit,
Yeah.
because we know what you're gonna say.
Mhm.
And we're gonna let Miss Christina tell us when you tell us the answers. But what's your favorite pork product?
Mhm.
We're gonna go over these types of pigs, and I bet Miss Christina will pop in right at the right time.
Yeah.
So, way back when,
Uh-huh.
a long time ago,
Okay.
grandparents, great grandparents.
Long time ago.
If you look at the picture on the screen,
Mhm.
it says types of pigs, and there is a very, very fat pig in a black and white picture,
Okay.
and we call that a lard type pig.
Lard pig.
Lard pig. We do not grow pigs like this anymore.
Okay. Okay.
Way back when, they had a purpose for a pig like this. We called them lard pigs because
They gave us lard, which with nutrition, that's fat.
that's fat.
And so our fat pigs gave us fat.
We had a use for it.
Very cool.
And being the bakers we are, we know that our grandparents probably baked a lot with it.
Oh yeah.
And they also fried and did everything.
They probably used it all the time, every day even.
Soaps, lotions,
Oh yeah.
a lot of things produced for lard.
Yeah.
But we've gotten away from that.
We kind of have figured out that it's maybe not as helpful of a choice for us to use every day.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. So remember, it only takes how long to produce a baby pig?
Let's listen.
Okay. Tell us the trick. How long does it take to produce a baby pig? And then once we have that baby pig, we know it only takes about 6 months to grow one out. Now.
Okay.
But it may have taken a lot longer then. So when consumers started telling us, hey, we don't need all this fat anymore.
Yeah.
We're not going to use lard as much. We're going to switch our fats. We're going to cut them down.
Okay.
We started changing our pig.
Okay.
Okay, did those pig product names start coming through yet?
We have a crowd favorite.
Oh, what is it?
Bacon, bacon, bacon!
Bacon.
Bacon.
I mean, I can't blame you.
I can't either. We love bacon.
We love bacon. We did a meet on Monday about bacon.
We did.
So you can go check that video out later.
Oh, yeah.
later. But so there was a time where we created something that we called a bacon pig. It means we focused on where the bacon came from, we're about to learn.
Okay.
It was a slightly fattier pig than what we have now, but not near as fatty as that lard pig.
Okay.
And so we had our bacon pig,
Mm-hmm.
but then it lasted for a while. But then starting around like 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, we really started doing a lot of research in health.
Okay, yeah.
And consumers started telling us we wanted lean meat.
They figured out that bacon isn't something we should have every single day.
Every single day.
There it is.
And people started getting, and really starting around like the 90s, 2000s, people really got started to be sick of chicken as their lean meat option.
They wanted something else, healthy that wasn't chicken.
Yes, healthy, lean, that wasn't chicken. So
Okay.
we took that short gestation period,
Mhm.
we took that short growth period that we have in pigs, and we used it to our advantage.
Okay.
We pulled off a lot of fat off of our pigs. We
Okay.
made them very, very, very lean. But then something happened again. Around the 2000s, 2010s,
Did people figure out they didn't like no fat?
how many of y'all have had a bad pork chop in your life?
So dry.
So dry.
Sorry, Mom. They were dry.
It happens.
Yeah.
When you take all the fat off of something,
Yeah.
plus maybe not knowing exactly how to cook it properly, which is why you're at barbecue boot camp,
Yeah.
you get a dry pork chop. And so people decided to tell us, hey, we want some fat back on because fat equals
Flavor.
flavor.
Fat equals flavor.
Absolutely. So fat is not the enemy. It's just you have to know how to use it.
We call it a sometimes food because we only eat it sometimes.
There you go. So we now have what you see on the screen there as a meat type hog.
Okay.
It's very, very muscular, but it has fat on it.
So it's like the in-between that we've been looking for.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, so we can have good bacon, but we can also have some things that aren't quite as high in fat.
Yep.
Oh,
Yep.
very cool.
Miss Crystal, we have a question. Where does pork tenderloin come from? Like,
Ooh.
Thank you for the segue. I can't see your name, but Miss Christina gave you the shout out.
Shelby. Thank you, Shelby.
Thanks, Shelby.
Shelby gave us the transition of the day.
Yep, it's true.
This is one of the things I get super nerdy about. I love it. And if you go to the next slide, you'll see the pictures of all the pig parts.
There's a lot of big parts.
There's a lot of pig parts. And so if you look at the one side of the screen that shows the pig hanging from foot to foot,
Mhm.
you'll see all the different parts that we get, from hams to loins to pork chops to tenderloins and everything. But that's a lot to talk about.
Okay.
And we only have a short amount of time here at Barbecue
It's
Boot
a
Camp.
little overwhelming. Let's get the basics.
So let's get the basics.
Okay.
So, Shelby, we're going to get to your tenderloin, but we're going to talk about a little meat science before we get there. So what makes you a really good consumer is not necessarily just knowing where does the pork chop come from, but it's what am I doing with it?
Okay.
What is barbecue again? Nope. Miss Claire? No. They have to answer it.
Okay.
Tell us again, how did we define barbecue? We had some very specific words we used.
We did.
And we have some very specific cuts of meat that are made really good for barbecue. We have other cuts that they're not quite as good, but you can still barbecue them. It's just maybe you don't have to.
Oh, that's nice.
So let's break that a little down. If you see the pig on all fours there, you'll see that it's kind of broken up into 5 what we call subprimals.
Okay.
These subprimals can get broken down even further.
Okay.
So let's start with the loin, across the back.
Okay.
So I want everybody to take your hand, take it. You're gonna put it on your back.
Okay.
You're gonna find your vertebrae, find your backbone.
Backbone.
Okay? And if you reach around, you feel your muscle,
Mm-hmm.
that is your pork chop. Yeah.
Who knew?
Yeah, so that's your loin. And when you look at a pork chop that has a T-shaped bone in it, that's it. That's it right there. If it has a curved bone, it's a little higher up, closer
Okay.
to the ribs,
Okay.
because that's a rib-shaped bone.
So that pork loin that she was asking about is right here. That Shelby was asking.
Very close.
Okay.
So that is the loin,
Okay.
and she's asking about the tenderloin, which is part of the loin, but
Okay.
it's a little farther deeper in. You can't actually touch that piece.
Okay.
The tenderloin is going to set right underneath the loin towards the back, sort of.
Okay.
And it's a smaller muscle. So tender loin, right? So that tells us it's a pretty tender cut of meat. Why is it tender though? So
I don't know. Does it have sad feelings a lot? Very tender.
it's very tender emotionally. No, Miss Claire. Pork chop is the tenderloin is not emotionally tender.
Okay.
However, it's actually quite the opposite. It's actually what we call a support muscle.
Oh, okay.
So, next exercise. We're at camp. We've got to move around.
Let's get moving.
We haven't had a hands-on exercise yet, other than you touching your back and finding your pork chop. Now it's time to figure out the rest of it. So everybody stand up. Come on, I'm waiting.
Let's stand up.
Let's get up. I see you. Pull for school. Stand up. Okay, let's do it. So stand up and let's act like we're pigs and we're walking around the barn. Okay, I'm walking. Walking around the barn. So when you're walking, what parts of you are moving the most?
Okay, my arms.
Arms. Is there another part that was moving a lot? Y'all tell us. Miss Claire says her arms were moving. Is there something else we need to be paying attention to? And so when we're moving our arms, and they're going to tell us the rest of the parts.
Yeah.
So when we're moving those parts that move a lot,
Okay.
it's what we call locomotion muscles.
Oh, like movement.
Movement. Locomotion is movement.
Okay.
But remember we said the loin was a support.
Okay. Yeah.
So the loin's not moving much, right? The tender loin, which is under the loin, is moving even less, right?
Okay. Yes.
So muscles that don't move a lot are tender by nature.
Okay, because they don't have to be as tough.
Yes. They also tend to be leaner by nature.
Okay.
Those muscles that are on joints that move a lot, shoulders. Did we get the answers?
Got some thighs, some legs, some hips,
That's exactly right.
some feet.
Thighs, legs, hips, feet, all of those things. They move a lot. And they tend to be tougher pieces of meat.
Makes sense.
So, did we get that answer as to what barbecue was? We said barbecue was slow cooked, smoked meats.
Low temperature and slow.
And those cuts that are super tough that we get from our arms and our legs, our locomotion muscles are very tough and they benefit and do super well with barbecue. They also tend to have a little bit more fat in them by nature, which also makes them great for barbecue. So let's talk about that a little bit. There's a few key words that I want y'all to know. And so the shoulder, we said it was a locomotion muscle.
Okay, our shoulder right here, yeah, it moves.
So we have two parts to the shoulder that we like to barbecue, really. But we have two big parts that you can buy from, large parts you can buy in the grocery store.
Okay.
Sometimes you'll see steaks, like shoulder steaks and things like that. You just need to know that they're going to be a little bit tougher than like a pork chop.
Okay.
And so we have the top portion, which is typically known as what we call a Boston butt.
Okay.
Weird. Super confusing. Boston butt in the shoulder. I know. It was just a naming thing. There's history to it.
Maybe that's the same person who named the blue butt.
There you go. Who knows? And so it's known as the Boston butt in the upper part of the shoulder.
Okay.
The lower part of the shoulder
Okay.
is known as the picnic shoulder. And you can remember that, to remember the top from bottom, is that when you go on a picnic, you use your feet to walk, right? So you're going on a picnic, the closer to the foot you get, it's the picnic shoulder. The higher on the shoulder is the Boston butt.
Okay.
Both great for barbecue. And that's what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah.
And so the other thing they're great for is if you want to grind them up for sausage.
Okay.
Because they're tough, so we can grind them into small bits, and that makes it a lot better.
Okay.
We've covered our loin. It's a support muscle, so it's tender. We get our pork chops and our tenderloin from there.
Okay.
But where do we get the bacon?
Where do we get
Hands on your belly. That's where your bacon comes from.
bacon?
Now, it's not bacon by nature. It's what we call fresh side.
Okay.
When it's just a belly of pork, it's a fresh side. So if you ever go to an Asian restaurant, typically we'll have them pork belly. That's what it is.
Okay.
Yes. Once we cure it and smoke it,
Okay.
that becomes bacon.
Bacon.
If you want to know more about bacon, meet on Monday video it. We'll link it in the description later. Yeah. And so then the last portion is, come on, Miss Claire.
Your leg.
What do we eat that at?
Honey baked ham for Christmas.
Yes.
Or Thanksgiving or Easter.
Most holidays.
Any holiday.
Absolutely.
Every day.
And while the ham's pretty tender, we do tend to smoke it. And then once we smoke it, which is a heating process, we also tend to cook it for a few hours longer, right?
Yeah.
So, and then we slice it thin to help make it tender as well. So another big portion that's good for sausage or to cook for a long time.
Oh, very cool.
Okay, Shelby. So now you know where your tenderloin is.
There it is.
Do we have any other questions waiting for us? Okay.
Not yet. No.
Y'all are pros.
Okay.
But, Miss Claire, I can smell your ribs.
They're delicious.
Tell me about what is in that Instant Pot.
Okay. I learned some things about ribs the other day. As Crystal and I went and hung out at the grocery store, like you tend to do.
I told you, meat science nerd. I hang out at the grocery store.
We found ourselves in the meat section, and I was trying to figure out which ribs to cook because there's several different types of ribs in the grocery store. So I learned some really interesting things. So let me tell you about it. So our ribs, remember how we were talking about our locomotion muscles and then our support muscles? Well, our ribs are right here. They're around our support muscles, but we actually use them to breathe, so they move. There is a muscle in those ribs. So they are technically, they're a locomotion muscle, and they need to be cooked for a long amount of time. Now, we have three kind of main different parts. So we have our spare ribs. Those are actually what's in our pressure cooker right now, and they're so good. They're bigger because, as you can see in the picture, it's the bottom side of the ribs. And so they're a little bit bigger, they're meatier, so if you want a lot of meat and you want a lot of good ribs, spare ribs is the way to go. Now our St. Louis cut ribs, that's kind of in the middle. So typically what's done is you take the spare rib and then you cut off the tip. And so you have still pretty meaty, but not as big.
But it's smaller, right?
It's smaller.
So it's pretty.
Yes.
Big square.
Yes.
Okay.
Our spare ribs are a bigger cut of meat. They're not necessarily pretty for your plate, but they're meatier. But our St. Louis cut ribs are the ones that are going to be a little pretty. Okay, now even prettier, and what we would get at a restaurant is our baby back ribs.
Yeah.
So our baby back ribs are the top portion. They have more bone, and they have a little less meat, but they're smaller, so they cook faster. And we were just saying the things that we have to barbecue, we have to cook them longer. So if you want something, if you're really hungry and you want to eat faster, then a baby back rib is the way to go. Like with a restaurant, I don't want to wait there all day long. So a baby back rib is great.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
Yeah.
Now, you said with the St. Louis ribs that they cut it off so it looks pretty.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to the grocery store and I'm looking at like costs, like if they've done something to it, it's gonna cost more. We call that. We learned this at Meat on Monday. It's called a value-added product.
Yes.
Anytime we do something to a piece of meat outside of its natural form, so we take skin off, we remove a bone, we make it look pretty, we slice it, we season it, we cure it, we smoke it, anything, we add cost to it.
Yeah.
So BBQ Bootcamp is teaching you how to be more efficient, be living within a budget but still have what you want. Miss Christina runs our life program. She loves some financial fitness.
Money, money, money in your pocket and bank account.
We like to have.
We like money in your piggy bank.
Yes.
Money in our piggy banks. And so we do love saving money around here. And there's nothing wrong with a value-added product. It's very convenient, and sometimes they can do things that you can't.
And it can still be good quality, like we've been talking about.
Excellent quality. But let's really talk how we can do this on our own.
Oh, yeah.
It's time. It's time. We're going to talk about barbecuing.
Let's get lit.
Now, y'all saw we've got some ribs cooking in an Instapot, and we're going to talk about that later. Today, we wanted to do something for you.
Yes.
That showed both a non-traditional method of barbecue, which is our Instapot, and then a traditional form of barbecue, which is our pork loin. Miss Claire and I spent all day yesterday smoking a pork loin. We did it ourselves.
We smoked a pork loin.
And
you can too.
Amazing. And you can too. Yeah. Really more intimidating than it is anything else. And it's totally possible. But say you don't have access to a grill, maybe it's raining on the 4th of July and you still want to have your barbecue. That's why we're showing you that non-traditional form. Now, again, what did we define barbecue as?
Low and slow.
Low and slow. So are our ribs technically barbecue? No. Technically not, but they have barbecue flavors, and they're very reminiscent of barbecue. And it's totally okay to do that because sometimes I don't own a grill. Yeah, I don't own a smoker. Maybe you live in an apartment. Maybe you live in somewhere where you're not allowed to have an open flame. Yeah. So these are all great options. And so that's why we're giving you the traditional and the non-traditional version. Absolutely. So we're going to talk about the non-traditional a little bit later. But if we're going to talk about that traditional smoking, the reason why you're here, the reason you're at BBQ Bootcamp with us is to get pretty lit. Oh, yeah. So absolutely. We're going to let Miss Claire start talking about that, and I'm going to get suited up in my apron.
Okay, so we have two main things that we're going to be focusing on. We have the heat source, and then we have our time and our temperature. So for our charcoal and wood, charcoal is our main fuel source. So that means that's where we're going to be getting our heat. We also have our wood. That's what is going to be giving us our flavor, and it also is fuel. Yeah, you can kind of play around with both of those. We used both to smoke our pork loin, but our different types of charcoal, you can have a lump or you can have a briquette, and then wood, there's actually 3 kind of main categories. So we have our mild wood, that's our fruit woods, things like cherry wood, apple, maybe even there are different types of fruit woods. That's going to have a milder flavor.
I love fruit woods.
So I like fruit woods too. It doesn't mean that if you smoke a pork loin with fruit woods, then your pork's going to all of a sudden taste like apples.
Okay, so fruit sweet though.
It's sweet.
Yep.
So it's going to just sweeten up your meat.
Just a subtle sweetness.
Just a subtle sweetness.
Okay.
Just a little bit of sweet. And then we have our moderate wood. So that's going to be things like our pecan, our hickory, our maple, our oak. All of those are moderate. So meaning that we're not going to have that really light flavor, but it's not going to be too overpowering.
Now, wait. It's Louisiana. We might as well just tell everybody now.
Let's tell them.
We use pecan wood on ours.
We did.
Because it's Louisiana. We have pecan wood
Love it.
readily available.
So use, like we have our pigs near where the corn is produced, use the wood that's closest to you.
So does that mean that if I have a pecan tree that needs to go, or any of these types of trees that need to go, I can use that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Chop it down and use it.
Okay.
100%. So then our strongest wood flavor is our mesquite. So that's going to bring a really big flavor to our whatever meat that we're smoking it with.
Okay, so mesquite was really popular when I lived in Texas.
Okay.
But we didn't really use it on pork a whole lot. So I went to grad school in Texas, so I was exposed to Texas barbecue quite a bit. And I love mesquite flavor.
Okay.
But it is strong.
Yeah.
And pork tends to soak up strong flavors.
Too much.
And it's too much. So come back on Wednesday, and you'll really start to see what we can use mesquite for.
Yes. Day 3, we'll have that mesquite flavor.
I said Wednesday. I meant Thursday.
Oh.
Thursday. Day 3 will be Thursday.
Day 3. We got it covered. So then let's talk about our time and our temperature. Now we said with barbecue, low and slow.
Yep.
Right? So low means our temperature. You want your temperature to be around 220 degrees Fahrenheit on average.
And so we fought with this a little bit yesterday because there's a science to it.
It takes practice.
And it takes a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And so when we stay on average at 220, we really don't want it to get above
250.
Yeah, 250.
And not below about 210, 200 at the absolute lowest.
Absolutely.
When it gets to 200, see if you can bump it back up a little bit.
Absolutely. And so we're going to try to average that 220 range. And we're about to talk about how we get that.
So let's talk about.
We have a quick question.
Okay.
That's somewhere in between coming where we always talk about and where we're going. So,
Okay.
Miss Christina, what questions we got?
The question is, what would you say is the most challenging cut of pork to cook for a beginner?
Okay. So challenging cut of pork. Well,
Okay.
we've already talked about those dry pork chops, right?
Yeah.
And so I would honestly say for a beginner barbecue boot camper, we actually tackled something that would probably be considered one of the hardest ones.
Yeah.
We did the pork loin.
We did.
We did pork loin because we wanted something that may challenge you a little bit. We have absolute confidence in that. But the reason why it could be a little more challenging for you is because, what did we say? It's a leaner support muscle, right?
Yes.
So being,
Tougher.
yeah.
Or it's not as tough. It's more
leaner.
tender.
It's tougher to cook.
It's tougher to cook.
Because it doesn't have as much fat.
Okay.
Anything that has a high fat content equals flavor and is going to be an easier, more forgiving option for you to start out with your barbecue. So if you're really nervous, one of the best options to start with is doing like a pulled pork out of your Boston butt. Taking the shoulder that's got a good fat cap on it, rubbing it, which we're going to talk about, and throwing that on your fire is going to be the most forgiving. So great question. But yeah, anything that's leaner is going to end up being a little tougher to start out cooking with. But speaking of cooking, the biggest part of barbecue boot camp, building a fire.
Building a fire.
And I think we could say from experience, this is probably the most intimidating and complicated part.
It is challenging. It is not impossible. But we'll be honest, it's challenging.
It is really challenging.
Yeah.
And we wish we could show you us struggling to build our fires right here. But because of fire safety, virtual boot camp, and all the things, it was going to be a lot easier for us to just show you some great pictures. So on our building a fire slide, it shows you some great detailed images of exactly what we did yesterday. Exactly. And yes, it takes a little practice, and it's a little nerve-wracking, but promise it's not as serious as it seems. You can do it. And step one is choosing your charcoal and choosing what woods you're going to use.
Yes.
And so when you choose a charcoal, there's two types. There's briquettes, which is what most people are used to when they grill, which is not barbecuing.
True.
Not barbecuing.
Because grilling is you have a high heat and it goes faster.
And you're on top of the flame.
Yes.
Absolutely. And then the other, you can get chunk charcoal as well.
Okay.
And so you can use either, doesn't really matter. We started ours in what we call a chimney. But as long as you're starting your fire outside of the smoker or the grill itself, you're good to go. Because that's going to help you control it a little bit better. So you're going to start with some briquettes or some charcoal in the chimney or in a pile, in your fire pit, whatever you have outside. And we started with a chimney because the chimney allows us to put the briquettes in or the coals. And then it lifts it off of the ground. There's a space at the bottom for us to put kindling, which is how we start our flame.
Yeah.
So all we did was crumple up some newspaper, we stuck it underneath. That opening also allows for oxygen to come in. So look at our fire triangle there.
Okay.
It says we need oxygen, fuel, and heat. So our fuel is our briquettes, our charcoal, or wood.
Yes. Or our wood.
And then the oxygen is coming in from the bottom.
We have that naturally around us.
And then our heat is when we take a lighter and we apply it to the paper, we get fire.
There it goes.
So we have oxygen, heat, and the briquettes are going to add as the fuel. So once we get that lit, they're going to start getting ashy. And while they're getting ashy and just doing their thing, they're getting hot, they're getting ready for us. We're going to go over to our smoker or grill.
Okay.
Because if you don't have an official smoker, all you have to do, actually, just let you tell us.
Okay, so we used a smoker, but you can, if you picture a grill, so if you cut it in half, if you have that circular grill, you cut it in half, on one half, you would put your bed of charcoal and you would put your hot charcoals on there. So that would be your heat source. And then on the other half, you don't have anything underneath. That's where your meat goes. So your meat gets smoked. It's just a little bit closer, so you might have to monitor the temperature a little bit more. It might not take as much time.
Perfect. So I can do this even if I don't have a smoker.
Absolutely.
Okay.
You should do this.
Absolutely. It might even be a little easier at times.
That's true.
And so what Miss Claire was saying there was like, we have our hot coals. So we're going to actually put down some fresh charcoal in our smoker or our grill.
So it hasn't been lit.
It's not been lit. It's not been done anything. It's just a bed of fuel for us. And we're going to put our hot, ashy coals on top of that. And then the unused, the fresh ones, will act as the fuel to continue building heat. Because on your grill or on your smoker, you'll have dampers that you can control airflow with and different things along those lines. So as long as your fire maintains heat within those coals, within the fuel, and has some oxygen whenever it starts to cool off, it'll start to build that fire a little bit more. And so you got what you need. That's the basis, but we're smoking, so we're missing something.
So that's where, remember we talked about our wood? So that's where our wood comes in. So we talked about our wood has flavor, but our wood is going to provide us the smoke because we don't just throw some wood on top of the fire. What's suggested and what really is the best way is that you soak your wood for about 30 minutes to an hour. And so you have soaked in water, and you have the wet wood that you can put on top of the charcoals, and they're going to start to heat up, and the smoke is going to, the water is going to evaporate, and that's going to create our smoke. So that's how you can control the flavor. You can use the pecan wood like we did. You can use some apple wood to have a fruity kind of a sweetness to your barbecue.
And so the soaking lets our fuel last a little longer, and the more wood you put on it, the more smoky, the more flavor it's going to have.
Yeah.
The other thing that we learned very quickly was that, one, you want to keep some fuel outside of your smoker going in case we get too cold.
Yeah.
We get a little drop below that 220
Very
or
important.
200. We can add a little bit of heat. But it's really going to take less charcoal than you think it is. We had a pretty small smoker, and we had, I would say it's probably a quarter of the table sitting here. And we only filled that smoker about a quarter of the way with one layer of fresh charcoal, and then maybe a half dozen briquettes of hot. Because our fire was very hot. And that's going to change depending on, one, how much meat you put on your smoker, and two, how big your smoker is.
And the other thing is that when our fire got too hot, because that happens too, all you have to do is just remove some of that fuel. So remove some of those hot charcoal.
Okay, but that sounds really dangerous there. So we want to try to avoid doing that as much as possible. But sometimes it happens. If you really start playing with a 300-degree smoker, it's going to be very, very, very hard to get that down. You're not going to end up with the product you want.
You can try to just open up your grill, release some of the heat. That might help. But to do it safely, you're going to want to take tongs that you haven't used with your meat.
And will not use.
With your meat. And you want to have an oven mitt. And one that can really handle the heat.
And that is last case scenario, guys. Last case scenario.
That's when we're pulling in our responsible adult.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so we've started our fire. We've added our wood. We have our side fire off to the side in case we get cold. We're maintaining a temperature of about 220.
So now we're cooking.
Here
it comes. Okay, so let's talk about our smoked whole loin. We did it. We smoked a loin. You can do it. So here's how you start. When you look at the pictures on that slide, you start with your dry rub. We made a very basic dry rub recipe. It's real simple. So it's going to be some brown sugar, some paprika, some salt, and some black pepper. And that's it. Really simple. Follow that recipe. We're going to email this out as well. And so you take that, you rub it on your raw meat. Make sure that you wash your hands before and after, of course. And then once that's rubbed down, you have your fire going, you have your smoker going, you put your cold meat onto your grill, and then you let it smoke. So the amount of time that you're going to go is 1 to 1.5 hours per 1 pound of meat. So Miss Crystal and I had about a 5-pound pork loin, and it took us about 6 hours.
So it's pretty on point. But another reason it took us about 6 hours is because we fought with our heat a little bit. We were a little hot at some times, and we got a little cold at times as well. Because that's part of the process. It's not meant to discourage you from trying it. It's just the science of figuring it out. It's what makes you a barbecue champion, is when you figure it out. We've got a question. Okay.
In terms of like cooking techniques, can barbecue be this? We have a question real quick. Can barbecue be the same as grilling, or would they be considered two different
Fantastic
cooking techniques?
So who asked that question, Miss Christina?
It's hard to. Louisiana Scruppy? I'm not sure.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Sorry if we butchered your username.
Yeah,
but we're gonna
sorry.
answer your question. It's okay. It's a great question. It is absolutely two different techniques. Barbecue is defined by low and slow, and typically smoke as well. Low and slow defines barbecue. Grilling is a hot, fast heat that you're putting your meat on top of the flame itself. Tomorrow, we're actually going to talk a lot about grilling because chicken grills so easily. Today, we're doing a lot of barbecue. Barbecue is also kind of defined by an indirect heat. Your meat is not on top of your fuel source. It's off to the side. So great question, but grilling and barbecuing are two separate concepts.
That's a good question.
It's a great question.
Yeah. So we barbecued our whole loin. We smoked it. Yep. And we barbecued it.
And it took us 6 hours, but it ranges.
Right.
So how we told when we were actually ready is we did it the tried and true way. We took a meat thermometer.
Yep.
We stuck it in the thickest part of our meat.
Good.
And we waited till it read. We actually pulled it off at about 135. And the reason we did that is because you want to rest your meat.
Yeah.
And when you rest your meat, it means it's going to continue to come up to temperature. So we took it off at about 135, and we let it come up to
145 is what you want for your whole muscle pork. If it had been like a pork burger, some ground meat, with our whole pork loin, we have just on the outside of our whole pork loin, that's where our bacteria that could potentially get us sick lives. And we want to cook. The reason that we go to 145 degrees is because that's the temperature that bacteria is going to die, and it's not going to harm us anymore. But if we were to grind it all up, then all of a sudden our bacteria is all in our meat.
It's everywhere. And we have to make sure that every piece of it is as thoroughly cooked as possible.
Yeah.
Which means we have to change our temperature to about 165.
Gotta go up.
So whole meat cuts for pork can be 145 and round meat cuts is 165.
Yes.
I might take note of that on that pen and paper you may have for camp because it may come up in a game later.
Okay, so we've talked about the pork loin. Let's show you the pork.
Yes, let them see it.
Look at that. I wish you could smell it. I wish we had smell-o-vision.
Oh, I'm so wishing camp was in person and not virtual right now. I'm gonna take this away from Miss Claire so she can explain what this lovely, glazy yumminess is.
So
And
you
I'm gonna try
saw it's saucy, right? And we made some sauce. We made some Louisiana peach barbecue sauce.
it. But what if I don't want to make my sauce?
Oh, you can buy it. You can absolutely just buy it from the grocery store or wherever. But I gotta tell you, it's not as hard as you might think it is. Okay, so barbecue sauce is, now if you look at the slide with our recipe, there's a lot of things on that slide, right? But for the most part, you're gonna chop up your onion, you're gonna mince your garlic, and you're gonna put those into a saucepan and stir them for a little while until the onion gets translucent. It means it's a little more see-through. But then you pretty much, almost all the rest of those, except for the pepper, salt, honey, and butter, you just throw it in there. So
Just
throw it in.
all in one.
It's
cook it
all
together.
in one pan.
Okay.
You cook it all together. You stir it a little bit. You don't have to stir it constantly, but every 5 minutes or so for about 30 minutes.
Okay.
You cook that sauce. And then once it's thickened up, and you can have a chunky barbecue sauce if you want to, but I went ahead, I blended it up, and you can put it into a blender, get it blended up so it's nice and smooth. Then you stir in the rest of your ingredients, and there you have it, Louisiana peach barbecue sauce. Goes really well with pork because our pork goes really well with those sweeter flavors. It's delicious. But like Miss Crystal said, if you don't want to make your own barbecue sauce, just pick your favorite from the grocery store.
Absolutely.
It's a good one.
Absolutely. Let's get this going. Let's see how we did.
Okay. We've made cuts. Let's try it out. Cheers.
We did good, guys.
It's so
We did good.
smoky.
Let's just flip this.
Show them this one.
It's so smoky, and you can see. You might have to guide me, Miss Christina. Can you see it?
Yes, we can see it.
So if you see, there's a little bit of a smoke ring because we wanted something very subtle. That smoke ring is that change of pink color around the edge. It's what you're looking for. It's proof that you did your smoke. This is delicious.
It's so
Louisiana pecan wood, Louisiana peaches.
good.
This is pretty amazing.
It's so good.
But you've been cooking this entire time,
It smells good in here.
and I think it's time to try something else.
We did our pressure cooker ribs. So I told you that we were going to cook these, right? So let me get them real close. Miss Christina, can we see this?
Up a little bit.
Up a little
Yes,
bit more?
good.
Okay. So we have fully cooked ribs from our electric pressure cooker. So like I told you, we did 20 minutes on the manual setting, and then we just let it natural release, meaning we just let it set with the top on. And so now we have fully cooked ribs. So let me get something real quick that's going to help us to grab this out.
And while she's doing that, we're going to talk a little bit about how she got things ready. So this is just a section of our ribs. And you'll see on Miss Claire's, can you see this, Miss Christina?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll see on Miss Claire's instructions is that you had to cut it in fours. So this is the fourth section. And also that you had to remove the membrane. So we're using spare ribs here, which is why they're quite meaty. And I'm going to pick this up and we're going to talk about some things. So typically on a rib, you'd want to remove the membrane. And Miss Christina, you may have to guide me, but can you see this kind of grayish looking area versus the red area?
Yes.
That is the membrane. On spare ribs, this membrane is not super thick and you don't have to pull it off because it's not tough like it would be on baby backs or St. Louis ribs. If you notice, you can only see two bones in here. That's a bone. It's very hard. And it only goes about halfway down the piece of meat because this was the bottom portion of the ribs, remember? And so the rib portion would be what had the membrane. When we made this with our baby backers, we had to pull the membrane and that was totally okay. So just remember to pull your membrane. it looks like the silver skin, and you can just get your fingers underneath it, and it'll pull right off.
So, while Ms. Crystal was talking, I have been, and this is optional. We could have just taken these ribs out of the pressure cooker, and then they would have been totally fine to eat. But we went ahead and I put some sauce on them, like you can see. We have our oven set to 450 degrees. So I'm going to pop these in here for about 8 minutes or so, and then just like TV magic, I have some pre-prepared. So here is our meal. We have our coleslaw, a little whole wheat roll, and so here is our ribs, all ready to eat. They're going to be nice and tender, and they are all sauced. So the sauce in the oven is crisped up, and it is delicious.
And you did this in less than an hour.
I did this in less than an hour.
Does it actually taste like barbecue?
Oh, it really does. We need to try it.
I think so too.
I think so.
Let's give it a go.
Yeah. So take a bite.
You did good.
Thank you.
You did good.
There it is.
We have
Question.
a quick question from Heather. Why do you have the meat cut into fourths?
Oh, so we're for the cooking process in the electric cooker, you stand it up like a pyramid. So you take each of those 4 pieces and you put them on each other. And there's a picture in the slides that shows you what it should look like. So that's going to help it to not touch the bottom, just to cook a little more evenly.
You can definitely put it in your crock pot or Instapot in other formats. They do curve, so they'll curve with your crock pot. It's not necessary. It's just a step that definitely helps. It'll also cut down on cooking time for increasing surface area. The ribs were amazing.
So good.
The loin is my favorite though, guys.
So good.
You can't replace smoke. We're gonna try to on Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
We didn't use any other techniques other than barbecue sauce for this, for our non-traditional format.
Yeah.
But that's barbecue boot camp.
It is.
And just like a 4-H fashion, we're gonna make sure we don't have any other questions from the crowd, Christina. And as she's looking and getting those questions ready, if there are any, we like to wrap up 4-H. We're a little bit long today, but that's okay. We're having a lot of fun. And so we like to wrap up 4-H with what we call Vespers.
Vespers.
Reflections. It's just a chance for us to see how the day went. And even more than that, talk to each other. We know in this virtual world, it's so hard to connect. And we want to be there at camp with y'all. We would usually be at Lost Camp right now, and we'd be doing this in person, but we just can't. And that's okay. We can still have connection. So if you look at the slide, the very last, I think it's the last slide we have, you'll see that it says Vespers there. And there's a link that says Flipgrid. The QR code there also is Flipgrid. And so what Flipgrid is going to allow you to do is take a quick video and post it to our Flipgrid. And when you log into Flipgrid, it's going to tell you. We want to know your name, where you're from, what your favorite parts of barbecue boot camp were. And then we want you to go and meet your other campers. It allows you to take little videos and say hi to other people. And so when you log on, it'll show you what we're asking you to do. And Miss Claire and I are going to do our Vespers right now on camera along with you. So please go to Flipgrid and do your video. Sean, your counselor from earlier, is also going to do a Flipgrid. And so we just want everybody to have fun. Let's make sure there's no questions.
We have a couple of questions.
Okay.
One is from Danielle, and she asked, "Is fat good for you?" I don't know specifically which type of fat.
So there actually that's a good question. So fat, there are what we call, and you might have heard this term, good fats and then bad fats. So good fats are things like they come from our avocados, our walnuts, our things that are more natural sources. And those things, so fat as a whole is something that our body needs, but if we get too much of it, then it's not going to be good for our heart. So good fats are still fat, but there are better sources, they're easier to process, and they're easier for our heart to handle. So those are things that we can have more regularly, but are not as good fats. I don't want to call them bad fats because every food gives us different things, and some we can have all the time and some we don't want to have as often. And our not as good fats are fats that we don't want to have as often. And those, we do find some of those in meat, are things like steak or higher fat percentage of our ground meats. Those are things that we don't want to have as often. So it's a complicated answer, but the answer is kind of yes and no.
So they're important for our bodily processes. Absolutely. We need to balance good fats and maybe fats that don't quite have the same benefits, because our good fats can have other benefits.
Yeah.
Like, vitamins or minerals, or they give us something else than just the fat itself. And so moderation and have a variety in your diet.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Next question from Desiree. I think this is referring to the pork loin. Why is the gray in the meat important?
The gray?
Yes.
It
The
might be
gray
green.
coloring, I think.
It might have looked a little gray on camera. It's pink.
Okay. So we're
Okay.
gonna talk about
Okay.
two things there. So I don't know that you did more on camera than we already did. But when you look at a piece of smoked meat, there's a ring around the edge. It's typically a very bright pink versus the inside will be a little bit browner or pink in the case of pork. And so that's called our smoke ring. And it just means that's how far your smoke penetrated and how condensed your smoke penetrated the meat. So the smoke ring is very important for flavor. Now, the other thing that you could maybe possibly be talking about is the silver skin of the ribs when we came up close. And that grayer kind of area is what we call the silver skin. And that's what you're gonna look for on the bony side of your ribs to pull off, because that membrane is very tough. It's like jerky if you try to eat it. And so you wanna pull that off before you rub it. And that may be what you were talking about as well.
How can people watching this access the recipes?
Access the recipe. Good question. So we are going to be sending out emails. We're going to have a link to this recording, and we can post this as well. You can sign up for our emails, and we're going to be sending out an email that has our recipes in it. So come back to this post. One more thing before we do our Vespers too. Make sure you share this video with everyone. Share it in groups, share it, tag people that you think would be interested in it. We know it's a little bit of a longer video, but we'll put in time codes so they can skip around to where they need to be. The recipes are in this video, and we'll post the recipes in other places in our event groups and other things like that. So, any other questions? Okay, Mr. Steve is going to continue control managing. It is time for Vespers, people. It is.
Pull out those cell phones. I know you've got them. Use that QR code. If you currently don't have a Gmail or a Microsoft login, you may have to wait until your parents get home so you can do that. But these Vespers will be available to do at any time throughout camp. But get on and do it. We're going to do our Vespers right now. So give us just a few seconds. Do your Vespers along with us, and then we'll be back here in just a few seconds. Just a second. Okay.
All right. Hey y'all, it's Miss Claire. Had a lot of fun at camp today. Love talking about pork and talking about cake and crystals. Hope y'all had a lot of fun. Bye.
Love the loin. It was my favorite part.
Thank you.
Have a great day. We'll go say hi to others. Bye.
I'm gonna put a sticker on mine.
Oh, yeah, you can put stickers and filters and have all kinds of fun. And then I can go and look at Miss Claire's and leave her a little message as well.
I put a couple stickers that I think y'all are gonna like, but you gotta go see to see what you like about them.
Okay, all right. So it's there. One last thing. The other thing we typically like to do for camp is we usually like to have recreation time.
Game time.
Game time. We're not with y'all. We can't go swimming. We can't go fishing. We can't play volleyball. We can't do any of that because we're not with you. But we tried. We did. So
We want y'all to play along with us.
we do. So we have a trivia game. And it's called Kahoot.
Kahoot.
Kahoot. So Kahoot, we made a Kahoot specifically for today over the pork information that we've given you. You can follow the link there that's in the PowerPoint. We'll also drop it in the chat later. You can find it in the Instagram, in our Instagram profile link. There's a lot of places you can find it. It'll be in the event page as well. And the Kahoot is simply a self-paced game that when you log on, it's going to force you to pick a fun nickname.
Something like Chicken Run.
Or Crazy Tiger.
Oh yeah.
And so remember your nickname, have fun, enjoy it, and then go through your game, and it's just going to test your knowledge about all the things you learned today. And what's great about this is because we are actually playing a live family game night Kahoot on Thursday at 7 p.m.
And there will be prizes.
And this one is family game night. You're going to be playing against your parents, against strangers. We have people logged on and registered for BBQ Bootcamp from Colorado and Virginia and Arkansas we have people from all over the nation watching with us right now, which is why we want you to do your Vespers. Connect with these people, say hi, enjoy what they have to say at the barbecue. And then also, we're going to play Kahoot with them on Thursday night. And if you play all these Kahoots leading up to it, you'll be ready to be on that winner's podium. You will be ready to dominate. And that Kahoot will be live, and we're playing it real time. So it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah. All right.
That's it.
So we've gone over some animal science.
Yep.
We know where our meat comes from.
We got our recipes.
And we've tried out our barbecue.
Absolutely.
Are y'all ready to try out your barbecue?
Try it out.
Okay. Well, we'll meet you back here. Same time tomorrow.
Yep.
2 o'clock.
2 o'clock tomorrow.
What are we talking about? Do I need to say anything else?
We had a lot of fun today, y'all. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all. Bye-bye.